I feel at peace. It was therapeutic painting this picture. I was just off in my little Jen world. And this is the first time I've been able to paint in a year. It's been a year since I've been locked up almost now. So just seeing a paintbrush and holding one in my hand, I didn't feel like I was in prison. I went into a different world the entire time I painted this. I felt no fear, I felt no worry, I just felt comfort.
Create New Beginnings is a way for women to express their feelings in a creative release and also in a substantial way where they are actually able to grow and learn and understand about why they're feeling what they're feeling. Because if you understand a feeling you're having and what it does to you when you feel it and how you can overcome it, empowers that woman to no longer let that emotion control her life. And that's powerful.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Crazy Amazing Humans podcast, where we highlight everyday humans doing crazy, amazing things. I'm Katrina Carlson.
And I'm Jefferson Denim.
So today we have the pleasure of speaking with two incredible women, Martha Ackerman and Stephanie Segel, who have created a remarkable program, just as you heard or saw in that opening video. They are empowering women in prison to explore core issues of identity and purpose, helping them create new beginnings, both inside and outside of incarceration. We'll hear their inspiring journey of how they developed and expanded their program to reach other organizations. We'll also delve into the transformative techniques they use to support these women and share ways you can apply their restorative practices in your own life.
So Martha Ackerman is an artist and co-author of the Create New Beginnings Restorative Art Workshop. Martha's experience with art and design began with her work in the fashion industry in New York City. So over the years, she developed a deep passion for women's issues as she volunteered with various organizations focused on addressing gender-based violence. So as a creative, Martha combined her passion for art and beauty and her compassion for women's struggles into the curriculum for Create New Beginnings, which is now actively growing and being used in dozens of sites, both inside and outside of prison.
Stephanie Segel is a contemporary painter, published author, and the co-founder of MoDa Studios in Venice Beach, California. She has a deep passion for the arts, serving as a tool for spiritual growth, self-expression, and human connection. Since visiting Rikers Jail in 2017, she's worked alongside those living behind bars, painting murals and co-writing Create New Beginnings with Martha. Stephanie currently works out of MoDa Studios, where she's completing her upcoming painting series and privately commissioned artworks. Okay, so that was a lot. So fun to hear about you all. Martha and Stephanie, welcome to the Crazy Amazing Humans podcast.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
So glad you're here. Let me start with Stephanie. So in 2016 or 2017, I hear you wanted to go to prison. I mean, go into prison, correct? I mean, specifically Rikers Island in New York. So tell us about that.
I did want to go into prison. I think I just wanted to connect with the men and women in there and tell their stories, because often people behind bars, they are prejudged or their stories aren't viewed on a level platform. So I think I just wanted to get to know them and give their stories voices.
Amazing. You wanted to go into prison, share stories, and you went to Rikers Island, right? What happened there?
So Martha and I got connected through prison fellowship, and we went into Rikers Island. It was my first experience going into a jail or prison, and we were told to bring in something for the guys to do. So we came up with the question, where do you see yourself now? And where do you see yourself being in the future? Or where would you like to be? And we brought in some art tools. I believe we brought in like a collage that they could take pictures and kind of make their own artwork based on that question. And it was so powerful that the deputy warden invited us back immediately. He was like, when can these ladies come back? That was the lowest like incident rate that night. It was just an atmosphere of calm. So they invited us back, and then that kept on going.
I just have to know, how many people were in that workshop that you led that day?
I think maybe around 10 or 15, but then they kept adding people like on the spot. They were like, oh, can these people join? And these people? And we were like, yeah, we really had no idea what was going on. We just said, yeah, go for it. The more the merrier.
Well, so that was your beginnings. Okay, so Martha, tell us about writing, developing, and piloting your Create New Beginnings programs, let's say in the LA County Jail, as well as other prisons. These were your next steps, right?
Yes. So as Steph said, every time we did Create New Beginnings in Rikers, the deputy warden would invite us to come back and tell us that they had such low incidences. And ultimately, they ended up hiring a artist to work with the men who lived there. And my husband said to us, I think you guys might be onto something. Would you consider making this into a curriculum? And I'd love it if you would gear it towards women. Number one, because you two are women. And number two, because women are the fastest growing population in prisons across America. And also, most programs that are in prison are all written for men. There are few programs that are specifically written for women. And so he said, I feel like this would be a really good thing for Prison Fellowship to have a program that's specifically geared towards women. And would you guys be interested in doing it? And so we said, yes. That's what we did. We just, one step at a time. We started with 3 workshops, and then we worked up to more and more, and it ended up being 10.
Wow. And were those mostly developed in Rikers Island?
No, yes. So then we started going to women's prisons. So because that's became our focus, was specifically for women. And Rikers is a jail, not a prison. And there's a difference between jail and prison. And just basically the difference is that jail is basically where people are either sentenced for short-term sentences, or they are there while they're awaiting their sentencing to go into prison. So Prison Fellowships programs are mainly in prisons. So we started working in prisons, and we were specifically working in a prison called Shakopee in Minnesota. And also we went to Chino and Chowchilla in California. Steph and I were both living in California. And then we ended up actually going into a jail through a connection from church in Los Angeles and piloting for several years in Lynwood County Jail, which is in Los Angeles.
Okay, that's amazing. So you said that women are the fastest growing population in prison. You know, what are these women going in for? Do you know why that's happening?
Well, the statistics show that the majority of women who live in prison have been abused. And that abuse could be mental, physical, verbal, all of the above. And usually it's at the hands of a man, not always. And as a result of that abuse, a vast majority of them turn to addictions to mask their pain. And it's those addictions that have a direct correlation between their ending up in prison.
When we were piloting this in Lynwood in the county jail in Los Angeles, the group of women that we worked with were all women who had been trafficked. So it was an intense population, but what did they call it? I forget.
They called it the gender responsive unit. And 100% of the women that live in that unit in Lynwood had been sex trafficked.
I wanted to mention that we have a podcast that we did with 2 people, Jeff Wohler and Keenen Washington. And Keenen was a human trafficking survivor, and Jeff has an entire organization, and he was part of the police force who helped with human trafficking down in San Diego. And that is our episode 34. And I just wanted to touch on that because our listeners have heard a lot about human trafficking with women. And it's really amazing to me in full circle that you are doing something to help these women. And Keenen, Washington, who is a survivor, she has an organization down in San Diego that helps women coming out of that darkness of having been trafficked. So thank you for that, because that is right in the wheelhouse of what we've been trying to tackle some of these issues. So this is incredible.
And also, Lynwood County Jail has a capacity for 2,800 women. And at the time we were there were 3,500 women. So very overcrowded. The unit itself was really overcrowded, but it was an incredible experience to see how God used this curriculum in the lives of these ladies to communicate their pain.
Their pain. Yeah. Well, hence create new beginnings. You're giving hope, I'm imagining, and a sense of whatever happened in your past does not have to dictate your present or your future. Katrina and I love that. So Stephanie, can you describe for our audience what a typical session would entail and how the entire course is structured?
Yeah, so as Martha said, it began with 3 workshops and then we expanded to 10. So it's a 10 workshop course. We like to do it 1 a week. So it takes 10 weeks and then the 11th week is a graduation. But you can also use them as standalones and you can do them once a month. So it depends. It's pretty flexible. It's designed to be flexible. Prison fellowship, they often say that motto is permanently flexible because you never know with prisons and jails, like you can have a lockdown, there are so many variables. So it's designed to be flexible, but usually the sessions are 2 hours and each specific topic is something that we have thought a lot about, prayed about, specifically chose for women. So the first one's vulnerability, and then we have things like shame, self-doubt, empathy, accountability.
You don't have to be an artist to do the program. You can have, in fact, a lot of women that we have met over the course of years in prison, many have never even colored with crayons, never done any art whatsoever, especially the ones that have grown up on the streets of large cities. So you don't have to be an artist, and all of the workshops are the same, and that goes as well for the book. So you start out with some sort of quote, a Bible verse and prayer, and a bit of discussion on the topic, and a art project around the topic. And then after that, there's sharing time, and basically you wrap it up. So in a brief nutshell, that's how they all go.
Well, I just feel like Katrina and I talk about this all the time, that most children are artistic and that it's kind of beaten out of us as we grow up. So to allow or give permission to get in touch with an artistic side of themselves that they didn't really even know they had, and then as a vehicle to express their pain or process whatever life is handed to them, that's powerful. And I also love permanently flexible. Isn't that a great life motto for us all?
Yeah. Great.
So I have a follow-up. So I know that you're not licensed therapists. So how do you partner with professional psychologists, psychiatrists to give these women the best care that they can get?
At Lynwood, we would go in and pilot these workshops. We piloted each one multiple times, and the person that was bringing us in is a therapist, and she was working with the ladies, and she said during session, like during their one-on-ones and during their group sessions, that whole week they would use that same topic. So they found it incredibly helpful. They said the ladies opened up and they didn't want to stop talking about it. That's another thing about Create New Beginnings, is that it really opens up that opportunity to discuss more vulnerable things that wouldn't come up otherwise in a place that's comfortable and safe. And yes, we are not therapists. We do not claim to be therapists, but that's another beauty, I think, of Create New Beginnings is it's really, you take out of it what you put into it. So that goes for the art, that goes for the scriptures. It is based in the Bible because Martha and I both go to church, and that's part of our belief. But you don't have to be Christian, or you don't have to believe in that to take it. You don't have to think you're creative to take it.
Right. And you also mentioned that because it's really an art-based program, that federal prisons, you were the first program that they would take in because of its nature. Can you touch on that?
So the Federal Bureau of Prisons in general doesn't have a lot of faith-based programming. And so they actually took a look at, through Prison Fellowship, they took a look at the Create New Beginnings program and thought it would be really good for the women to do. And it had to go through a whole review process, and they reviewed it and accepted it. And so now it's being rolled out in the Federal Bureau women's prisons across America. And so they get a reduced sentence for taking the curriculum.
That's amazing. So if they do the program, their sentence will get reduced by some measure.
Yes.
That's really fantastic. Martha, can you share with us how art can be an impactful restoration tool?
It's really just so simple because it's sort of that hand-eye process. And as we mentioned, you don't have to be an artist to do it. But when you're in this space where you've been told up front what is shared in here stays in this space. It's never meant to be used against anyone. You're thinking about a certain topic, and all of a sudden you put on paper some specific experience that you've had, and it's almost like your hands start taking over from your brain, and the women just start creating things, and it's very peaceful. The women will often be crying and laughing and sharing and talking with each other. And as volunteers, we do it as well alongside them, even with the book, with a group of women in a church community. We sit along our group and we do the work. We don't just teach it. And so you're really showing what healthy vulnerability looks like, and you have a space for communication to just happen because of the process of art.
So Stephanie, can you also share with us how art can be an impactful restoration tool?
Yeah, so I studied psychology in New York in college, and I loved it. I loved the psychology of colors. I loved the psychology of art and how the brain works. And so we incorporated this cool thing called the color emotions chart. And we take different colors and they represent different emotions. And there are so many studies out there. But for example, yellow can make you hungry, and orange is a creative color, and blue is a peaceful color. Like it can physically change your body chemistry, and red can increase adrenaline. Anyway, that's all these really fascinating things around colors. So we kind of took that and made that a very easy place to begin. If you don't know what to put on paper, it's a good place to kind of go inwards, see how you're feeling, see what color relates to that, and then put that on the paper.
So do you have the participants look at that color wheel, or do you all guide them? How's that working?
Yeah, we give that to them. And again, we're not therapists, and it's no like hard and fast rule that this color is this. It's just a guide, and you can take from it what you want to. And the other day, actually last week, someone told me that they've begun thinking in colors now because they've facilitated Create New Beginnings a few times for a few different 10-week sessions. And they're like, now I think to myself, oh, I'm feeling orange. Oh, I'm feeling red. I'm like, that is so cool.
I've heard about people who see things in color, and color really is part of their memory and their mind and how they look at things. So that's really interesting. And so with this idea of color and painting and expressing yourself through these, I would think that's almost anyone can apply those insights and practices into their own lives if they, are feeling certain ways. Do either of you do that? And could you share how you might apply that in your own life, or how others listening to the podcast right now could work through some of their emotions through applying those principles?
Visually, the books have a color and emotions chart for you to look at and flip through while you're doing each session. So that's something that's always there visually for you. And it's really helpful, as Steph said, somebody mentioning that they now think in colors. It's just easy to all of a sudden, when you're feeling angry, to sort of think, okay, I'm feeling angry and I don't want to feel this way. And then you start reflecting on what we've been doing for years, and it can be helpful.
I just want to say, I love that you're sharing it this way, because I feel like everybody can benefit from the knowledge that there can be a new beginning, whether you're in prison, out of prison, anywhere, any walk of life. So Create New Beginnings is such a great title for that purpose. I also wanted to just share that even though I don't always see yellow, I think I do, because I'm always hungry.
Well,
Is there something to that?
Yeah, I was going to say, we all know the expression, I was seeing red.
Right.
So that's obviously anger. So if you're seeing red, what color should you think of? Blue, to kind of calm yourself down? What would that look like?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
Maybe
That's
green, maybe blue. But when you think about, I feel blue. Blue,
Right.
that means I feel down. So every color also has a flip side to it as well, which is kind of interesting. But blue is a color that's supposed to represent calmness, which is why a lot of hospitals are blue. But Jefferson, it's a good segue to when you were saying everybody could use a new beginning. And that is why Tyndale invited us to publish Create New Beginnings as a book. For that very reason, is they said that in their findings, women in the church community are fabulous at volunteering and doing Bible studies and a lot of busy things. But their studies, not our studies, show that one of the things that they have difficulty with is going deeper with one another. And they felt that Create New Beginnings could be a tool to help them go deeper with one another.
I want to go back real quickly to Katrina's question about the colors, because Stephanie, you said something, and I think Martha, you were saying it too, that I thought was profound. And it's this: we asked you, and Stephanie immediately says, I don't know. I find power in the words, I don't know. And going back to your phrase of flexibility, you can have a general idea. For example, I facilitate some support groups with NAMI for mental folks on a mental health journey. And you start with the curriculum. I'm not saying you do this, but I know that for me, if we have a strict curriculum, but something emerges in the conversation, I'm putting that curriculum aside because I'm going to learn something new. I think this is all part of what you guys have done in developing Create New Beginnings. I think you're constantly creating new beginnings, even for yourselves. So that's just sort of a comment, and you guys can agree or disagree. And my wife disagrees with me all the time, so you can disagree with me on that. But I do have a question. Can you share one of the most impactful stories that you've seen?
Oh my gosh, we have heard, just as you can imagine, hundreds and hundreds of stories. And there's one that always stands out, and I have to say it's a little bit intense. So just to let you know up front. So we're doing forgiveness, and at the end, as I said to you, there's a time for sharing. And in the forgiveness module, what you have to do is think about somebody that you either need to forgive or be forgiven by. It could be yourself or someone else, and write a letter to that person. And everybody looks at us with like deer in headlights eyes. And we tell them, don't worry, because it's going to be turned into something else in the end. And it is turned into something else. That letter is torn up glued onto a piece of mixed media paper and painted on top of using the color and emotions chart. So at the end of the workshop, we have an opportunity to share. And in the middle part, after writing a letter, we often ask, do you want to share? And a lot of times people are like, no way, I don't want to share. And so we just go on. And even the art people aren't forced to share, but they end up sharing. They all end up sharing. And so this woman holds up her painting. She's so excited. She didn't want to share her letter, but now she's like really excited. And she said, this is my painting. She said, I've lived here now for like 30 years. So she's a lifer. And she said, my letter was to my father, who's no longer alive. The first time my father raped me, I was 2. And my letter says to him, look what you did to your little girl. Look where she is today. Why did you do that to me? And she said, I've never shared this with anybody here, and I've lived here for 30 years. She said, so this is my painting, she said, and she's holding it up, and it's basically landscape way. And it's all dark on one side. She says, this is how I've lived my entire life in darkness. I've kept this hidden. She said, but you know what? She said, I think God can heal me of this. And so her painting shifts to these colors, and she talks about how she's feeling like a sense of healing in the colors that she's used and expressing those. And then she goes to this other side and she said, this is where I want to be. She said, I really want to be free of this. And she said, I know that there's a lot of women in this facility that have been through similar things that I have. She said, I think not only can God heal me, she said, but I think God can use me to help others through what I've been through. And that's where I want to be, is here.
Wow.
That's huge.
That is amazing.
Huge.
What a gift.
Wow. Wow.
And the same, okay. As we're processing that, Stephanie, I got the same question for you. In all of the people that you've interacted with, can you share one of the most impactful stories that you've seen?
Yeah, like Martha said, it's that we've seen so many, but the one that comes to mind right now is also quite intense, but there's often this penny drop moment where something clicks into place when they've created their artwork. And I was just thinking about this one lady who, it wasn't during an actual workshop, but post workshop, she had been through it. We sat down and had some feedback time, and she told us her story, and she was trafficked by her parents from a very, very young age. And instead of turning to drugs and alcohol, she basically put all of that energy into school and being the best that she could in school and sports. And she was successful. She went to college, was successful, basically overworked herself, ended up becoming a teacher. Again, very successful on the outside, but she hadn't confronted these problems deep within herself. So long story short, she ended up in prison for having an inappropriate relationship with a student. And in prison, after doing Create New Beginnings, she made that connection between her past and how it led her to the actions that she took that led her to prison. So just that, seeing those connections be made is so impactful because it just releases you of that.
Absolutely.
And now the both of you have written a book, as you alluded to earlier, entitled Create New Beginnings. So could you tell us about it? Martha, let's start with you.
Yes. So we, as a result of doing this program, we were asked by Tyndale publishers if we would consider writing this as a curriculum for women outside of prison. They ended up reading the curriculum and said in their findings they feel that all women could use this. And so in 2020, 2020, Steph and I embarked on a journey of helping to co-create this to be a book for all women to do, which they published in 2023.
It was almost a year ago.
Speaking of a year ago, so a year ago, Steph, I went to MoDa Studios, where you are every day, something you've created. So you all had, I saw both of you there for your book signing. And so it's a beautiful creative space. And I just thought maybe, Steph, you want to talk a little bit about MoDa and what that stands for, what MoDa stands for, and a little bit about what you all do there.
Yeah, so I am in MoDa Studios right now. MoDa is mother-daughter, and it's with my mom. And it's basically just a place for creatives to come together. And I love art, obviously, and I love creativity and connection. So it's a place for artists to come and collaborate and create what they were meant to with using their God-given talents, basically.
That's beautiful. And MoDa, so it's M-O for mother and D-A for daughter. And you've mentioned your mom a couple of times, and your mom is Tina Segel, and she is one of my dear, dear friends. So amazing woman. You know, behind every amazing young woman, there is an awesome mom. So a crazy,
Well
amazing
said.
mom, and that's Tina Segel. So
Well
shout out to
said.
Tina.
So as we're wrapping up our conversation, how can our audience follow you or stay connected with what you're up to?
So I am on Instagram at Martha Ackerman. Our book, Create New Beginnings, is available on Amazon.
You can follow me on Stephanie Logan Segel on Instagram, and then MoDa at modastudios.venice. And if you're interested in going to prison, you can go to createnewbeginnings.org, and it will take you to prison fellowship and how you can get involved in prison ministry.
Amazing. I love that. And just, it's been an incredible conversation. We want to thank you both so much for telling us your stories, telling us your process, sharing everything about Create New Beginnings with us and our audience. And so Martha and Stephanie, you two are both incredibly crazy, amazing.
Today's episode of the Crazy Amazing Humans podcast is brought to you via Apple, Google, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. All episodes are free, so make sure and subscribe today.
Hey, so that's our show. A huge thank you to Martha Ackerman and Stephanie Segel for joining us today and sharing the really crazy, amazing story of Create New Beginnings. If you've enjoyed today's episode and you think it would be meaningful or helpful for someone you know, be a crazy, amazing human and let them know about us.
Remember to make sure and subscribe to the Crazy Amazing Humans podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We've also filmed the podcasts, so you can check us out on the Crazy Amazing Humans YouTube channel. And while you're there, make sure and leave comments. We love to hear what you're thinking.
We sure do. And most of all, we want to make sure to thank you for being with us. Remember that every little kindness has the potential to create crazy, amazing human experiences, one person at a time.
And as always, this week, we want to encourage you to find one thing that you can do to extend kindness and love in the world. I'm Jefferson Denim.
And I'm Katrina Carlson. Stay healthy, stay connected, and we'll see you next time right here on the Crazy Amazing Humans podcast.
I want you to feel, I want you to feel something crazy, crazy, amazing.
If you have any questions or comments about today's episode, please make sure to write us at crazyamazinghumans@gmail.com.